The United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA, is one of the most significant trade deals in North America. Signed into law on July 1, 2020, it replaced the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, which had been in place since 1994. But how exactly does USMCA work, and who benefits from it? Let's break it all down. USMCA was designed to modernize trade between the three countries, strengthening North American supply chains while improving labor and environmental standards. The deal impacts a vast range of industries, from automobiles and agriculture to digital trade and intellectual property protections. But before we dive into the changes, let's quickly understand why NAFTA needed to be replaced. NAFTA was one of the first major free trade agreements, eliminating most tariffs on goods traded between the US, Canada, and Mexico. While it significantly increased trade volume, critics argued it led to job losses in manufacturing due to outsourcing, and it didn't adequately address modern issues like e-commerce and digital trade. USMCA was introduced to tackle these shortcomings and ensure fairer trade across industries. Between 1994 and 2020, NAFTA reshaped trade in North America, but it also faced heavy criticism for causing a trade deficit with Mexico, as many U.S. manufacturing jobs were relocated there. By 2019, trade between the three nations surpassed $1.2 trillion annually, but economic pressures and labor disputes necessitated a new approach. USMCA updated key provisions, making trade more balanced and enforceable. Case studies: how USMCA affected specific industries. To understand USMCA's real-world impact, let's examine a few industries that have seen significant changes. Automotive industry. U.S. auto manufacturers such as Ford and General Motors had to restructure their supply chains to meet the new Regional Value Content (RVC) requirements. This forced an increase in domestic production and reduced reliance on parts from outside North America. In contrast, smaller auto parts suppliers struggled to adapt due to higher production costs. Dairy industry. While U.S. dairy farmers gained more access to Canada's market, some Canadian dairy producers have seen increased competition, causing price fluctuations and pressure on smaller farms. E-commerce growth. Businesses across all three nations saw significant benefits from the removal of tariffs on digital goods, allowing software companies and content creators to expand their markets more freely. Breaking down USMCA. Key provisions. USMCA brought several major changes to how trade operates in North America. Here are the most impactful provisions. 1. Automotive industry, stricter rules of origin, new Regional Value Content (RVC) requirement. Under NAFTA, 62.5% of a vehicle's components had to originate from North America. Under USMCA, this increased to 75%, ensuring that more parts are sourced domestically. Labor Value Content Rule 40. 45% of an automobile must be made by workers earning at least $16 per hour to encourage production in the US and Canada, rather than Mexico. Steel and aluminum requirement. 70% of the steel and aluminum used in vehicles must be sourced from North America. The North American auto industry is valued at over $1.2 trillion, and these stricter requirements aim to keep production and jobs in the region. Companies that fail to meet these rules face tariffs of up to 25%, making compliance essential. Additionally, USMCA has had a ripple effect on auto parts suppliers, forcing them to restructure supply chains to meet the higher regional content thresholds. This means more production shifts to US and Canadian factories, rather than relying on cheaper parts from Asia. 2. Agricultural benefits, more access to Canada's dairy market. The U.S. can now export up to 3.6% of Canada's dairy market, a significant increase from NAFTA restrictions. Stronger protections for U.S. agricultural exports to Mexico, including grains and pork. Elimination of Canada's Class 6 and Class 7 milk pricing system, which previously hurt U.S. dairy farmers by undercutting prices. Expanded access for U.S. wheat exports into Canada, ensuring fair grading. The U.S. agriculture sector alone exports over $40 billion annually to Canada and Mexico, making these changes crucial for farmers and food producers. However, challenges remain. Some Canadian dairy farmers claim the agreement puts pressure on domestic producers, while U.S. farmers argue that the market access granted is not as significant as initially promised. 3. Digital trade. A game changer, one of the most modernized aspects of USMCA is its comprehensive digital trade provisions, which were missing in NAFTA, ban on data localization. Companies can store data in any of the three countries without being forced to use domestic servers. E-commerce protections. Tariffs on digital products such as software, music, and ebooks are prohibited. Stronger intellectual property, IP protections, including longer copyright terms and patent protections. With digital trade surpassing $500 billion annually, these new protections ensure that North American businesses can remain competitive in the global tech economy. Trade volume breakdown total. USMCA trade volume exceeded $1.6 trillion in 2023, highlighting the agreement's role in stabilizing and expanding North American trade. U.S. exports to Mexico rose by 8.5%, with significant increases in auto parts and agricultural products. Canadian exports to the U.S. saw a 5% growth, particularly in natural resources and manufacturing sectors. 4. Labor and environmental standards. Mexico must enforce stronger labor laws, including allowing independent unions and eliminating protection contracts that favored employers. Environmental regulations were strengthened, with new commitments to combat illegal fishing, improve air quality, and protect marine environments. A $600 million fund was created to ensure proper enforcement of labor laws in Mexico. These provisions impact industries worth over $2 trillion in combined GDP, helping balance trade and worker protections across the region. Future outlook. Where is USMCA heading? Looking ahead, USMCA is expected to continue evolving as industries and economies shift. Several trends are worth watching. Supply chain reshoring. With rising global tensions and supply chain vulnerabilities exposed by the pandemic, more companies are likely to move production back to North America. Political shifts. A future administration could renegotiate parts of the agreement, especially if labor disputes or new environmental concerns arise. Automation in manufacturing. As factories in North America adopt more robotics and AI, the demand for high-skilled labor could increase, altering workforce dynamics. Final thoughts. Is USMCA good for North America? Overall, USMCA modernized and improved North American trade by updating key policies that were outdated under NAFTA. It provides stronger protections for workers and businesses, clearer rules for digital trade and intellectual property, better incentives for companies to manufacture within North America. While some industries face new compliance challenges, most experts agree that USMCA is a win for economic stability and regional cooperation. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment to support our channel. We cover trade, tariffs, and U.S. customs to help businesses and consumers stay informed. Check the description for sources and links to further reading. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.